Hiya! Welcome to this, my totally 80s episode 89 of VideoFuzzy. I'm your host, Terry J. Aman, sifting my basket of media memories, and in this installment, titled Forever Freestyle, I encounter episodes of B from the 80s, as well as the reboot from 2009, plus my Python My Name is Earl flashback episode, and remember when they sold you CD compilations via televisual advertisement? VideoFuzzy does. Welcome to the show! He doesn't have it on video, does he? We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy. Thanks for joining, and if you get a chance, please track down episode 6 of VideoFuzzy, the soundtrack titled Taking Over Me, talking about Evanescence, Enigma, Ed Sheeran, and the like. For this set, the Wayback Machine unearthed a bunch of wildly day-glow throwback material.
People, you've got to leave your tombs earthed.
Thank you, Cordy. I would tend to agree. And can't wait to talk about it, but I'm going to get us into it here with, And now, VideoFuzzy presents Fuzzy Feature. As I said, this time I encountered a wealth of way-back whatsits, including a more than usually bizarre installment of The Prisoner from the 1960s and one of the German-language broadcasts of Monty Python's Fliegende Zirkus from the early 1970s. I also encountered a smattering of sci-fi rebroadcasts of B episodes from the 1980s, including the two-part miniseries that got it started. Now, I'm not even going to attempt the level of detail we were treated to in podcaster Chris Cooling's installment of Forgotten TV from May of this year. I absolutely recommend anyone with an interest in the original series pull that up and give it a listen. As always, he did a fantastic job. Instead, I figured I'd open with the reboot, starting with the pilot episode that aired in 2009, which turned up in this set on disc 1491. The reboot opened with the questions: where were you when JFK was assassinated? Where were you on 9/11? These dark historic touchstones anticipating the disaster on deck. After all, it's not where were you when the Berlin Wall fell. The historical significance of the story we're being told is one of destruction. We're then asked, where were you this morning? This day, November 3rd, 2009, 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, starts out like any other. Well, there's earthquakes, but it's California. Coinciding with an especially bad one, though, are alien ships hovering in the sky above 29 cities all over the world. FBI counterterrorism agent Erica Evans, played by Elizabeth Mitchell, wakes to discover her son snuck out of the house. So, on top of spaceships and terrorism, she's worried about where her son is. And Father Landry, played by Joel Gretsch, has his hands full looking after his parishioners. Scott Wolf plays Chad Decker, an ambitious on-screen news personality who wants to cover the big stories. And Morena Baccarin is a visitor named Anna, simulcast in multiple languages at once on the giant view screens each of the spaceships become as they hover over major world cities and presumably disrupt air travel. As we first become aware of these ships, because apparently no one was looking up at all today, there's fear and distrust, but it melts away almost instantly because Anna is so pretty. We are of peace, she coos. Always. Working with Alan Tudyk as colleague Dale Maddox, Eric is tracking terrorist chatter, which apparently all stopped completely with the arrival of the visitors, except for one cell that started gearing up, looking for plastic explosives and so forth. My guess is it's the Resistance, but they're pretty quick on the draw there. All anyone knows is what we've been told. There's a fleet of ships. They can physically hover over our cities and communicate with all of us at once. They're looking for water and an element common on Earth, in exchange for which they'll share their clearly superior technology. They're far from home and overjoyed to find intelligent life to communicate with. It's such an easy psych evaluation to run. There's at least 9 bodies in the solar system from which to acquire water, not to mention all the comets. They'd be able to siphon Europa for all the resources they say they need and never have to bother us at all, or look like us, or learn our language, or gain our trust, or share a single thing. So what they're actually after is us, as livestock, which, again, this is a long way to come for a burger run, so now I can only imagine you're here for some kind of paranoid metaphor. Well, the original 1980 1980s version was focused on fascism. The visitors were all about infiltration and subjugation using superior firepower, but first they insinuated themselves into human society and began fomenting distrust and division, pitting humans against each other, thus gaining the foothold necessary to establishing their authority. The 2009 run focused on Democratic National Committee talking points, priorities, universal health care, clean energy, immigration, advanced technology. Oh, Erica's spidey sense is going crazy from the get-go with all the blissed-out, hippy-dippy peace and love standing ovations for Anna and what's she really up to. Yes, that media manipulation, snake oil salesman, talk you right out of your life savings and your home and family security while this peace and friendship from this attractive and charismatic alien.
She's not even from here.
Is all on their terms. Well, yeah, I mean, they've got the spaceships and the tech and crossed interstellar space to be here. The math involved in making that journey is impressive, throwing a dart and hitting a bullseye on the moon. And whatever she said, we've no real choice but to take her word for it. I mean, she's pretty obviously not from here.
Told you!
And we've no means of fact-checking her. And weeks later, they're still all peace and love and friendship, despite human agitators in host cities causing disruption. The pastor with the suddenly full and lucrative parish is worrying at the edges. Don't they need to earn our trust? Well, clearly not. Clearly showing up and being nice to us and boosting our economy. I forgot about the economic stimulus they did post-housing crash in 2008. That's absolutely a source of mistrust in this story arc. And 3 weeks later, beings in complete control of absolutely every aspect of their own message are somehow gaining that trust. Well, in order for it to fall apart that quickly, you'd need a 24-hour disinformation outlet spewing anger, mistrust, and outrage. This guy's just got a pulpit. Cut to the fact that they're reptilian overlords who mean to eat us. But they spent all that time and energy getting here. So much trouble to gain our trust. On sheer effort alone, we'd at least give them a nibble. But Georgie's not so sure. Played by David Richmond Peck, Georgie's the leader of the resistance cell who has compiled this amount of information. The V's have been here for years, embedding themselves in leadership positions in business, government, and the military, starting unnecessary wars and economic disruption, and, yeah, the conspiracies write themselves. They promise all these great things, but they're just positioning themselves as the saviors of all mankind. And to what end? Well, we've got Morena Baccarin and Alan Tudyk here. The fourth season of Angel, half a dozen years before, featured a third member of Joss Whedon's Firefly crew, Gina Torres, as a character named Jasmine. She was wonderful. Jasmine was an old one, older than the powers that be. She was a power that was, radiated ineffable bliss unto absolutely everyone. And oh yeah, ate some of them. So we were left to question whether it was cool that an ancient god could entirely subjugate the free will of others who were own and make them improbably happy if the cost for that bliss was potentially being eaten. You think of what happiness means, succeeding in life, forging personal connections with others, enjoying the occasional small victory and sense of accomplishment. In this case, there's no effort involved. Happiness is just what you're experiencing all the time, right up until you're not experiencing anything at all, either because your body wore out and you died, or because an old one ate you, which, honestly, none of her meals ever seemed especially bummed out about that. So the V's are offering Life Plus. They're curing things we've never been able to. They're easing burdens we've never managed to ourselves. And they're providing advancements and opportunities that fuel their own interstellar adventures. Those advancements probably centuries away for us on our own. And maybe they eat us. We've not seen them eat anything yet. Geez, Aman, paranoid much? Well, we learned some vague information about a sleeper cell of visitors, I guess, bearing out all of Erica's suspicions. Meanwhile, Anna's offering economic stimulus, outreach programs, clean energy, and universal health care, complete with mysterious genoactive injections. But for now, they're focused on the soft cell, convincing Chad to compromise his journalistic principles for the greater good, as defined by the visitors anyway, so as to conduct his interview with Anna, which in turn sneakily fed the conservative narrative of corrupt media, which, yeah, it is entirely beholden to its corporate owners, but that's not how they meant. By the end of the pilot episode, we saw Erica's partner was one of these advanced agents, Reptile in a human suit and the mole in her operation. We saw them using surveillance and attack drones. We saw Georgie's longtime trusted friend Ryan, played by Morris Chestnut, was also a V, but in fact a turncoat to the alien cause and newly engaged to a human woman. And every conspiracy plot needs its patsy, its stooge. We saw Erica's teenage son had forged his mother's name to join the Visitors' Peace Ambassadors program because he thought maybe he'd get some touch with Lisa, a beautiful young visitor. And we heard Erica's manifesto. We will form a resistance. We have to be careful because they have a huge head start and wield the most powerful weapon of all, devotion. As conservative storytellers near the dawn of the Obama administration, the lines were drawn plenty clearly enough, and all without Anna having to eat so much as a single mouse on screen. All she had to do was stand there and look pretty, and Morena Baccarin is well cast for that objective. Put up against the original miniseries and series productions they ran in the 1980s, this presentation was slick. It absolutely had a point of view, and that point of view is, dang nabbit, what are Democrats up to, and why are they so gosh darn popular? Oh, not to worry, the lizard people paranoia was absolutely getting itself established. The Resistance Manifesto was way more detailed than the miniseries from 1983, which turned up in this collection on disc 1492 through 1494, which more clearly paralleled Nazi-style fascism as visitors focused public mistrust of scientists and rounded them up, and martial law imposed and strong-arm tactics were overt and indistinguishable. Faye Grant, as beautiful scientist, Juliet Parrish laid out the plan.
Firstly, to undermine all visitor activity. Impede their progress every way that we can. Secondly, I think we should find out what their hidden goals are.
And thirdly, we have to find out more about the physicality. We've got to find their weaknesses.
And let people know about their true reptilian nature. Right. And last, and probably the most important, establish contact with others like us. It's the only way that we stand a chance of winning.
I love how the most important thing is to stop them from doing whatever it is they're trying to do, and then figuring out what that is. Seriously, the speed in which we found out their secret evil scheme and how basically want to steal all our water and eat us is breathtakingly careless on their part, like leaving cookbooks lying around in Twilight Zone episodes. The miniseries only had a few hours to work with, so the dastardly nature of the visitors had to become pretty clear pretty fast, and the 1980s network series focused on Camp Palace intrigue between Jane Badler, June Chadwick, and Duncan Regehr, all kind of archly sniping at each other the whole time. 2009 series had some times, so they're all basically pretty blissed out, which is essentially the problem. The trouble with metaphors is that in order to be valid, at some point they have to parallel reality. As a cautionary tale against the rise of fascism, the original miniseries and network production drew from actual human history, some of which was referenced directly by characters in the show who had survived the show Holocaust, remembered the howling, horrifying atrocities, naming them, the work camps, the medical experimentation, the showers with no waters, the mass graves, the unspeakable cruelty to one's fellow human beings. The inhumanity of the fascists was driven home by the alien, reptilian overlords. The 2009 reboot couldn't point to anything but grumpy disagreement tinged with envy. See? You're all just following a Pied Piper being taken by a charismatic leader. And for what? Free healthcare? Clean energy? Stimulus checks? Just tax us all into the poorhouse. Where's it all gonna end? When in reality, the money all flows directly back into the pockets of the mega wealthy anyway. They're just jealous of the stolen moments it was ever so briefly in the hands of the poor. Which, it's hard to believe this has to be said, but yeah, fictional, promised the Tea Party's proto-QAnon community, which Fox personality Glenn Beck was whipping up into a frenzy at the time, a peek behind the curtain at what's really going on. We pretend to be benefactors. We pretend to help the environment. We make them reliant on us, and then we eat them because we're evil lizard people. And that's going to become evident any minute now. You just watch. Okay, it never happened. Obama's been out of office for 6 years, but that's just what they want you to think. Again, if you're looking for fascist parallels, I think the one seeking to excise human rights from entire classes of people, be it civil rights, voting rights, marriage rights, due process, medical access, bodily autonomy, or, establish protocols of stranding asylum seekers in unfamiliar cities, or shoving immigrants to drown and die in razor wire traps in the river water because, as always, say it with me, the cruelty is in fact the point. Entire political parties who spend every waking hour punching down while endlessly claiming victimhood. Honestly, people see this by now, right? I just love how the message got twisted so hard that billionaires got pores fighting for them. Yachts? super yachts, mega churches, space tourism, Titanic voyeurism, hemorrhaging billions of dollars on your latest social media buy, all the while refusing to pay actors and writers and workers their worth and blaming every social ill on health and safety regulations, environmental policies, and workers organizing to possibly achieve a already largely inadequate $15 an hour. Socialism, communism, fascism. Oh, Jesus Christ, join us in consensus reality already. Shore up Social Security, clean up air and water, spend what's needed to address wildfires and deforestation, figure out desalinization, single-payer health insurance and renewables, pay workers a living wage, and pay our damn taxes already. As for what I really feel, I thought this would be a good one to share some of my initial reactions to from when the series first aired. So, from a November 2009 episode of TV is the New Reading, take it away, Terry.
In the run-up to ABC's reimagination of the 1980s version of V, Sci-Fi aired a marathon of the original series back-to-back, culminating in the miniseries that got the whole thing started. The miniseries was really good for its time. It was able to spend a lot more time on the visitors and their backstory than ABC was in the pilot episode of its remake. The aliens came from Sirius, some 8+ light years away, and came to the Earth to meet other intelligent life, which in the ABC reboot, Morena Baccarin as Anna simply gushes over us and makes us feel all adorable. The miniseries had John, who served as High Commander for the V's, Diana as Science Officer and second in command, but Anna reminds me more of Diana in the series, basically in charge, brimming with personal charisma and a force to be reckoned with. In the miniseries, the aliens are essentially after our water, which they're saying is rare in the universe, even though it occurs naturally on 5 bodies I'm aware of offhand in our own solar system, along with countless comets and probably more places as well. That turns out to be their goal. I'm okay with them latching onto Jupiter's moon Europa and towing it away if they want. I mean, we're not using it. They also want to freeze-dry humans as a food source, and this seems silly as well. Mice breed like mad, and again, I'm pretty sure we'd be okay with them taking as many mice as they want. Also, as soon as they got all the water they needed, I'm guessing they'd be fine on food as well. But failing all of that, say they like it here and don't want to go back, the miniseries shows a visitor diving into liquid nitrogen to save a human coworker. It seems like they're at least better suited to life on Mars than they are on Earth. I mean, again, if they spend a few years terraforming Mars to a suitable atmosphere, and really they've crossed into solar space, what's another couple of years? Again, they can have it, and hop across to Earth for anything they need, and they could probably make a perfectly good life for themselves, and we could all get along just fine. I'm guessing it won't be as simple as that this time around. The sci-fi audience is a little more sophisticated than it was in the 80s. For all its die-hard fans, there's a reason Defying Gravity is off the air, and the series is already drawing social and cultural depths and realities not present in the original. And it's raising different questions, as sci-fi tends to do, reflecting the social environment in which it's written. For instance, where it seems pretty clear that what's going on in the new version, a slick, charismatic savior descends from on high, purportedly to save healthcare, our environment, agriculture, social unrest, but has a destructive hidden agenda we can only guess at. Meanwhile, the only ones who haven't been completely taken in and duped are kooky conspiracy theorists and religious types. And the supporters of the visitors are hoodlums and ne'er-do-wells who graffiti everything and forge their mother's named things. In the original, the visitors were anti-intellectual bullies who hunted down scientists and took their lunch money. The investigative journalists who uncovered their dirty little secret stumbled upon their taste for live animals and the fact that they were reptiles in a completely random manner. There were more analogies to the Gestapo and death camps from World War II than anything else. Ultimately, the message of both is that aliens are scary and bad and we need to form a tea party. A resistance to fight them. They were unable to do all this in their miniseries because the V's shut down the broadcasting and phone systems. I would hope their approach in the remake is more sinister and less heavy-handed, because uploading one cell phone video of that V who'd infiltrated the FBI with his face off should be able to at least get a few hits on YouTube before the V's even know what's going on, and the spread of information is pretty well democratized. However, even in the remake, we've been introduced to at least one infiltrator who is opposed to what the V's are up to, whatever it turns out that they are up to. Now, that's part of what made the original so thrilling, figuring out everyone's motivations, why people are conspiring and collaborating and doing whatever it is that they're doing. For some reason, they've decided to stick with lizards in human suits. I'm guessing the effects, at least, are going to be up to the challenge. The lizards in the original had nowhere near the subtle complexity of features and control that they did once they suited up. The series they based on the miniseries, by the way, was largely disappointing in retrospect. I enjoyed it at the time because I was a science fiction geek and it seemed to be written specifically for me. Heck, there's this one episode where a woman's having a baby, and there's this bespectacled little kid who might have actually been me. I'm guessing it probably wasn't me, but it was a little weird watching it. Anyway, yeah, I'm thinking it was written for children, the way stories had zero complexity, and the recurring abandonment theme, and how the V who was among the resistance fighters, Robert Englund as Willie, was this extraordinarily wet negative space of character whose vague klutziness and weak grasp of English made him a perfect companion piece to the Star Child, a girl with random superpowers, so she could make people glow and bring them back to life, and she had telekinesis to the extent that the script called for it. She could mimic voices and feel things. They kept the adults in the group, specifically Mark Singer and Faye Grant, from getting especially adult, if you hear what I'm saying. Meanwhile, although the aliens have exhibited mastery over our transportation and communications, again, that's only to the extent the script calls for it. They don't block resistance radio signals, stop airplanes, or give especially convincing chase. On board the ship, nearly everyone is always in their human suits, and the simple investigation of the leader's assassination is so terrifically botched, it's astonishing these are the same beings who, despite extraordinarily scarce resources, could cobble together something that brought them safely across interstellar space. That being said, it's true I could watch Jane Badler and June Chadwick as V-leaders Diana and Lydia snipe at each other for hours, but yeah, the palace intrigue moved so slowly, and it's really hard to ignore the cheese factor of the hair, makeup, overwrought acting, and stilted dialogue. So indeed, all manifestations of V have their challenges, and I'm looking forward to seeing where ABC is taking this thing.
Thank you, Terry. It's interesting approaching the story from both sides of my awareness of it. Originally, I'd closed that commentary with the hope that the production team would move off the conservative social commentary, somehow missing that these establishing tropes were the point of bringing the series back to television in the first place, as a reactionary claw of nails down a chalkboard screaming about charismatic alien takeovers while gesticulating wildly at Obama's entire presidency, saying, "See? See?" So, yeah, no real hope of that. That was another time, though. Fortunately, they've all since joined us in consensus reality and didn't try destroying a pizza parlor or the U.S. Capitol and then try to blame it on lizard people or anything.
That's what they want you to think.
Shush. And now...
I associate many things with many things.
Cross Connection. Oh, did you like that? That line is one I've craved for this drop-in for years. So when 1952's desk set turned up in my cataloging, this time actually on disc 1500, I had to add it. Thank you, Miss Hepburn. With Buffy's little sister Michelle Trachtenberg appearing in 6 Feet Under and Nathan Fillion's appearance in Desperate Housewives, Francis Conroy, no one in the Jossverse is much more than a step removed via Studio Murphy Under challenge from the mystical center of my media collection, linked in some way to Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. 6 Feet Under appeared in Brian Murphy production. So the appearance of Morena Baccarin and Alan Tudyk in the 2009 reboot of V cemented that series as central. Add Elizabeth Mitchell in Lost, along with West Wing and Mr. Sunshine alum Allison Janney, and the show locks in at Studio 60 bona fides as well, meaning that the challenge for this set may be the miniseries and network run in the 1980s. So ignore Jane Badler's involvement in the reboot for the moment, Richard Hurd's also involvement in Desperate Housewives, and Richard Lawson's involvement in Numbers alongside Studio 60 alum Judd Hirsch, and let's focus on Faye Grant and Mark Singer. After the tiniest bit of searching, I discovered Faye was in something called State of Grace with Michael Mantell, who is actually in 6 Feet Under, as well as West Wing with everyone from Studio 60, as well as the Ryan Murphy production of Nip Tuck, so that puts her pretty close to mystical centrality on her own. And Mark Singer also recurred in the 2009 reboot, but I also found him in The Last Letter with Richard T. Jones, who appeared in Dirt with Courtney Cox, one step from Studio 60 via good friend Matthew Perry, and if that weren't sufficiently close, Jones appeared in Ryan Murphy production of American Horror Story, the Hotel chapters. So, yep, not too far away at all. But I wanted to check where Robert Englund, the Willie character, landed up. Oh, I'm glad I looked. He was in the Huleys with D.L. Hughley from Studio 60. I don't trace a lot of connections through D.L. Hughley, so I'm always happy to do so. So yeah, no one involved in any of the iterations of BS too far removed from mystical centrality at all. In other cross-connections, I mentioned a flashback episode of My Name is Earl, and Jason Lee is Earl Hickey, Fortune's fool, already owly about how his wife's son, Earl Jr., is not biologically his. This has also caused some tension with Nancy Lenehan and long-acknowledged Golden Thread Beau Bridges as his parents, Kay and Carl Hickey, toward their daughter-in-law, Joy. So when Joy gives birth to a multiracial child in the episode titled Guess Who's Coming Out of Joy on disc 1479, Earl is so spun he actually tries to leave her and move back in with his parents. Carl puts a stop to this by threatening to kill all of Earl's girls. It is not really as far a throwback as some in this set. This episode takes us back to who Earl was before his list and how Beau Bridges is his father, Carl, gets him thinking about atonement and path to redemption. In other connections, I found celebrated Golden Thread Stephen Tobolowsky's appearance in the 3rd season episode of Boston Legal alongside Jane Lynch, and ran into her episode in this set, American treasure Megan Mullally, putting, damn near my entire collection within a step or two of 6 Feet Under through Ed Begley Jr.'s involvement in both series. And I mentioned last time the arterial connectivity Michelle Trachtenberg represents between 6 Feet Under and the Buffyverse. Well, her appearance with Elisabeth Moss and Mercy puts this show a single step removed from West Wing and hence the world of Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. Not to mention Kate Mulgrew's appearance in Mercy, already pulled in the entire Star Trek franchise, as well as William Shatner, Rene, Auberjonois, and Armin Shimerman's work in Boston Legal, too. But yeah, Mercy, NBC's one-season wonder from 2009, forged quite a few solid connections to the mystical centers of my media collection. Awesome.
Diving into my classic collection.
Among other finds in my VHS to DVD transfers for this set, discs 1476 through 1500, a concept I've referenced multiple times in this podcast is from the 6 Feet Under episode Eat a Peach, as rebroadcast on Bravo, which turned up on discs 1488 and 1489. The cold open revolves around an elder family enjoying a meal together. A great nephew or something asks why Uncle Daniel doesn't like clean peaches. His sister said it's not that he doesn't like them, it's just he can't eat them because he's got the diabetes. Later that night, the sisters are still nattering on with neighborhood gossip, and Daniel's in the pantry. He opens a giant can of peaches and eats them, one after the other. The lines of his wrinkled, wizened face soften into a smile of transfigured joy. Against all medical advice, contraindicated by every part of him except his soul, tonight, Uncle Daniel is eating peach. As he does so, the screen fades to white. The show's way of telling us since the pilot episode that a death has occurred. Daniel's family, 2 brothers and 2 sisters, consult the Fishers about his funeral. The bickering starts immediately. We want an open casket. Well, Daniel wanted to be cremated. Over my dead body. I'm just fine with that. He was Catholic. He was lapsed. On and on. Rico and Nate are navigating the family's wishes, which seem to be more about what they want than what Daniel wants. Daniel wanted a peach. I was sure I was referencing something, a poem I thought I'd read somewhere, but in episode 79 I fleshed it out some. I was certain by memory, but like I said, I can't find it anywhere to reference it directly. Do the thing, make the call, visit the place, eat the peach, and let the juice gush down your chin. Its sun rays burst on your tongue and gurgle down your throat. Tomorrow is not promised to any of us. As I reviewed it for this segment, how this episode seemed to be saying something else, though. Go for it, but understand there are consequences. When their surrogacy attempt falls through, David and Keith reach out to foster this perfect child, Anthony, but learn in the closing moments of the episode that he's a twofer. He's got a troubled older brother, Darrell, who the foster agency doesn't tell people about at first. Back at home, Ruth is annoyed with George and the connection he's forging with Claire. I'll go into that more a bit later, but Ruth's friends tell her to dump him if she's done with him, kick him to the curb. By the end of the episode, she tells him she's found a place for them to move in together, but I felt like she means to leave him there on his own. We'll see how that peach tastes. As for Nate, his struggles with Brenda over boundary issues are not new or unfamiliar in blended families. Brenda wants to make sure his very young daughter knows about her birth mom, and Nate can only see the super uncomfortable questions that's likely to raise for her, which Brenda hadn't considered until Nate pointed them out, and then got super clear as to whether she was even his child to begin with, and the way her mother and biological father actually met their demise. Brenda thought she was just opening a dialogue about family, one that Nate frankly wasn't able to see a satisfying end to. Speaking of Brenda, the worst peach in the bunch was Claire, and Brenda's brother Billy's complete lack of boundaries, coming at her, invading safe spaces, claiming to seek closure. What he's obviously looking for is he wants to get back together with her. He had his boundary-free mother contact her about Billy possibly harming himself, and when Claire, naturally concerned, shows up at a bar to meet with her, Mom steps away and lets Billy take her seat, and Claire's like, what the actual... Billy wanted to make sure Claire knew that if she ever changed her mind, that he'd be waiting for her, and she was like, yeah, you made that super clear, and never mind. Lose my number. Buy a new phone that doesn't know how to call me. We're done. That peach indeed has sailed. This episode points out that the peach has consequences. The sentiment behind going for it, going for our dreams, resonates with the American dream. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, etc. But we're rarely invited to consider the negative consequences of expanding our family, or stalking our ex, or cutting ties. You do the thing. You go for what you think you want. You eat that peach, and the next thing you know, your bickering family is playing Herbie Hancock at your open casket funeral. Me, I revised the parameters. This episode explored the negative consequences of chasing your dreams. I celebrate the choice. Eat that peach. We're all adults here. Everything we do has consequences. We know this. Weigh them out, and then make the decision. Speaking as a person who's walked past entire orchards through most of his life, I assert that joy, his sweetness, life, that experience demand that you reach out, take hold, bite through that fuzz and live. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. What else? Well, along with V's from many eras, my collection this time, as I said, seemed to have more than usual amount of throwback material, including one or two early 1970s attempts at foreign exchange outreach by the Monty Python troupe titled Monty Python's Ticket to Circus. I was happy to discover this one because the PBS airing of it was one of the very few times I've encountered it, and I thought it was a fun find. High school German's sufficiently distant memory. I was happy with the inclusion of subtitles as the comic funsters joked and japed about Albrecht Dürer. This is Shakespeare is performed by cattle, and then Shakespeare is performed by, I believe, gynecologists. It's a German version of the Lumberjack song, a German newsreader pulled into a swamp, and animation detailing a budding romance between two exhibitionists. Memory is suggesting to me that the second installment is funnier. Should I encounter it, I'll let you know. As for the title of this episode, on disc 1487, I encountered a commercial aired on Bravo during the 2007 Thenabout's re-airing of the 5th season 6 Feet Under episode called Singing for Our Lives. The ad was a 2-disc compilation of Forever Freestyle, featuring 32 smoking hot 80s hits from Razor and Tie.
Wow!
Artists and songs included The Cover Girls with Show Me, George Lamont's Bad of the Heart and Look Into My Eyes, Sweet Sensations Hooked on You and Sincerely Yours, Stevie B's I Want to Be the One, and Spring Love, Nice and Wild's Diamond Girl, Koro's My Fallen Angel, Noel's Silent Morning, Company B's Fascinated, Cynthia's Endless Night, Cynthia and Johnny O's Dream Boy / Dream Girl, which Apple Music insists is a completely different song than Johnny O's Fantasy Girl, Lisa and Cult Jam's I Wonder If I Take You Home and Can You Feel the Beat, which for some reason was listed twice, as was Raquel's In a Dream, also Seduction's True Love and Two to Make It Right, Stacey Q's Two of Hearts, Corinna's Temptation, Lizette Melendez's Together Forever, Linear's Sending All My Love, Brenda K. Starr's What You See Is What You Get, Little Susie's Take Me in Your Arms, Expose's Point of No Return and Come Go With Me, Judy Torres's No Reason to Cry, and Shannon's Let the Music Play, and many more. Which, I guess many means 3 now. Discogs.com reports that they were Giggles, What Goes Around Comes Around, TKA singing Maria, and another by Lizette Melendez, A Day in My Life Without You. That was 2 CDs crammed full of smokin' hot 80s freestyle dance hits for $26.99 plus shipping and handling. The ad says you can order it online at MusicSpace.com. I cannot confirm this. MusicSpace.com takes you to a landing page where there's a phone number I was not calling and a hot link to an email I wouldn't access with a burner account. Rather, Amazon is selling a CD with a similar cover for under $10 right now, but no info on whether you get both discs. eBay had them where the packaging looked right, so they probably had both discs. That said, they'd better. They're charging as much as $75 used. Discogs.com, Whitlock, had one left of each, and they're selling for $9.99 with $6 shipping and handling. So I could get both CDs mailed to me in, I am told, not new, but very good condition for $31.98 altogether. What I actually did, and you streamers can laugh at this, I fired up my Apple Music and bought MP3s. They were all available, most of them for 99 cents, so about a third of them I had to pay $1.29. Altogether I splashed out $34.98 for a whole bunch of songs that make for excellent road trip fare. Streamers be like, just throw on Spotify 80s freestyle mix, or you got SiriusXM, just pull up SiriusXM and listen to all those and like hundreds of other ones. And I'm like, yeah, well, these were specially curated by Razor and Tie Productions, by which I mean they tracked down and secured the rights to them. And anyway, I got a special connection to the CD compilation because it showed up in my media collection, and now it's all in my media collection, so yeah. A few things stood out about this media access, which seems like since it is now in my music collection, I should really be talking about it in VideoFuzzy the soundtrack. But at least one artist I was trying to track down from memory and I went back and looked while I was writing this up. Stacey Q's Two of Hearts was not scrolled or listed on the screen anywhere. I just added the title while I was transcribing the freestyle hits. It was one of the songs that they played during the commercial. I misremembered the artist as Susie Q. Well, be fair, 1986 was a while ago. I remember it as one of those songs that got a music video because all of them did. It just didn't really stand out that well. Another disconnect was George Lamont's Bad of the Heart and Look Into My Eyes, which seemed to be available in Apple Music under Loose Touch. A search for information about that band returns a Wikipedian entry for George Lamont, which songs are credited to him. So it's a bit circular, but I suspect this mid-aughts ad is probably more accurate, credits-wise. Finally, that 1989 song, Two to Make It Right by Seduction. Lyrically, the chorus reminded me of the much higher energy hook used in Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock's It Takes Two from 1988. Well, the artists certainly knew about each other. Wikipedia reports the song actually samples Rob and Easy's release, so well, the lyrics were clearly inspirational. I'm just happy this long-form commercial caught my attention while putting this together. Some of this music should absolutely have been in my collection all along. I'm happy it all is now. As for the ad itself, someone actually posted it to YouTube, so you can check it out for yourself. That link is in my show notes. Speaking of commercials, there's a Lexus commercial I encountered while watching the Eat a Peach episode that aired on Bravo. The commercial opens with a car crash on a city street and it looks like New York or Philadelphia. The Lexus caved in its bumper and its hood was off. The other car had hit a fire hydrant. Within 20 seconds, teams of stagehands lifted the city street backdrop out of shot, repaired the damage to the Lexus, rolled the other vehicle laterally out of shot, and enclosed the fire hydrant with a fountain, replacing the cityscape with an Italian countryside villa and completely repairing the Lexus. Which, gotta say, as someone with an interest in stage management, I had to watch that a couple of times. A bird wrangler even walked on and released a few pigeons into the air at the end, which dressed the scene perfectly. The tagline was, "The safest accident is the one that never happens." It was a brilliant commercial. It took some finding, but I included a link to that one in my show notes as well. Enjoy. Steve Coogan. I'm not sure how it happened. In 2008, we had a leading man who had verifiably on screen since appearing as Youth 2 in 1989's Resurrected at the age of 24, and played Phineas freaking Fogg in 2004, created a long-running character across multiple projects, Alan Partridge, and Nope, not one single bell. Kraft's a down-on-his-luck actor turned high school drama teacher on mean streets of Tucson, Arizona. Steve Coogan as Dana Marsh in Hamlet 2, opposite Catherine Keener as Bree Marsh, David Arquette as a person in the room, and Elizabeth Shue as herself. Kind of. I described Hamlet 2 last time as saying that by all medical logic this should have been a Coen Brothers movie. The setting of Nicolas Cage, Steve Coogan in Arizona, the comic beats it hit over the top, out of nowhere physical comedy amidst psychological darkness and despair that, as far as I could tell, led them to exhume and resurrect Orson Welles to read somber expository narration and stitching scenes together. This was written and directed by Andrew Fleming, but based on, I've gotta believe this man has at least heard of Raising Arizona, Burn After Reading, and The Big Lebowski. He may even have been inspired by them. After all, the Coen Brothers' Oh Brother Where Art Thou was based, however loosely, on the Odyssey. Hamlet 2 has an unfolded reference to a couple of familiar names and more familiar movies as it strutted and fretted its way across my screen. It could also have been the second greatest story ever told. Yep, Dana cast himself as Jesus. Yep, that one. In a movie that out of nowhere referenced Dangerous Minds and Stand to Deliver, a drama teacher faces a semester with oops, all screw-ups as the school board cancels every elective but drama and they all show up in his class, which was apparently an oversight. They meant to cancel that one too. Not that they were paying him anything to begin with, which is probably how it drifted under the radar. Along with the chaos this poses for him professionally, he and his wife Bree are trying to get pregnant. They've taken in a lodger who Bree hates. Oh, I guess she warms to him as the show continues, but Dana's also 7 years sober, and I don't know, to my Middle Western mind, when you're barely employed and you and your former or possibly currently drug-dealing wife are bringing in unpalatable lodgers to make ends meet, you're barely doing that. You do what everyone else in this country does and get work that will pay the bills and pursue your art and your dreams in your spare time. Maslow's hierarchy of needs includes self-actualization and sense of accomplishment, but it prioritizes basic physiological needs, which frankly are not going to diminish with the expansion of your family. So, Dana's drama class is completely out of hand. The school board is planning to shut it down. His home life is cratering and determines what he needs to do is get back into writing. And wow, is he not good at it. But in desperation cobbles together a sequel for the greatest play ever written, Hamlet 2. And now our movie has a title. Spoilers for Shakespeare's Hamlet, but the everyone dying at the end thing, I said spoilers, is managed by Hamlet hopping into a time machine to prevent his mother from drinking poison and Ophelia from drowning herself, and since we're fixing everything, Christ coming to terms with his crucifixion, and it looked like Einstein got involved in time travel somehow, and the storylines proceed to interweave, not least incredibly given how Hamlet is completely made up.
Flag on the play, a fictional character on the field.
I should watch this movie like 8 more times, but I'm gonna wait. The Capitol Shakespeare Troupe just closed their brilliant production of Love's Labour's Lost last month, and they're looking at Hamlet for next season. I'll absolutely be trying out for it, and I'll at least be in the audience. If you're close enough to get involved, they're also doing The Importance of Being Earnest this winter, so more information on all of that at capitalshakespeare.org. Anyway, along with the crazy ideas Marsh had to, as one character put it, remove the tragedy from the tragedy, 5 title cards split the production into 5 acts, and given the course of the characters and their story arcs, I suspect there were some underlying structural parallels to the original that I wasn't sufficiently attuned to so as to notice them. Encounter Hamlet 1 again as either a player or a fan. It'd be fun to see how Shakespearean this production actually is. That said, Coogan is also in the feral and wily goof Holmes and Watson, so sometimes there aren't really deeper hidden layers of meaning to explore. Sometimes a Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure pastiche is just a Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure pastiche. Either way, I've been encountering so much wonderful music in this project already, and Hamlet 2 did feature ABC's The Look of Love in its closing credits. I loved it, totally added to my music collection, so that's how many, I think 33 songs altogether I pulled into my music collection this time because I encountered them in these cataloging efforts. Cool. What else? I mentioned finding particularly bizarre episode of The Prisoner, even for The Prisoner, on episode 1497, episode 15, The Girl Who Was Death. A femme fatale, Sonia, dresses as various historical paramours to confound number 6, now Agent X. She lures him into a deadly building filled with booby traps and a whole lot of costume changes. That, and it seems like I've archived Roman Polanski's The Ninth Gate, which I'll probably come back to one day. It looked fascinating, old school Hitchcock sort of way, and oh wow, Xanadu, released January 1st, 1980, and starring Olivia Newton-John and Gene Kelly. Greek mythology meets roller disco in an utterly ridiculous way, and I love that I've got this. I also found the PBS Great Performances production of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats that aired in 1998. I've got early episodes of Eddie Izzard's FX project The Riches, Ellen hosting the Oscars, alien possession storylines at Fringe. I've got a documentary of the 2008 election called By the People, the election of Barack Obama, and I mentioned up there under Cross Connections on disc 1500 I found 1952's Desk Set starring Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. Some absolutely phenomenal finds this time, for real.
Checking out my current collection.
In my current direct-to-digital collection, Ralph and I recently finished watching BoJack Horseman on Netflix. The second to last episode I thought was a very cool candidate for a series finale, actually. It starts as a goofy little party at BoJack's grumpy late mother's place, with his grumpy late mother is greeting everyone, including Sarah Lynn and old director, Secretariat standing in for his late father, Butterscotch. They all happen to be dead, but at various ages in their own lives. There's a quirky anthropomorphic Robin flitting about, and they're treating her as wild. How'd this bird get in here? She's clearly being silly, and everyone's just having fun with it. They eventually gather for dinner, and they're playing Favorite Days or something, and sparking memories and conversations, because along with all the dead people at the party having some connection with BoJack, some creepy and regret factors are already present. Some have connections with each other, so they call each other on their choices as the game kind of goes all over till the show starts and people are expected to perform something on the stage and then exit. The exit looks pretty final. It's pitch black and the partygoers are reacting to it in a kind of way. BoJack makes a run for it, but even the mundane parts of the house have taken on a sinister tinge, and it's a decidedly trippy experience. The final season reads as a series finale, and the show in many ways was quite a festival of introspection. Among situations actively fought that, there's a danger of making BoJack a hero. It was the wrong read. We'd seen him behave in absolutely anti-heroic ways. If the growing up background he had did mitigate any part of the self-involved egoism we'd witnessed, we didn't see him actively reject a lot of that over the course of our time with him. His self-examination and situational awareness after spending 6 or 8 or perhaps 100 times the recommended length of time in rehab was at times refreshing, but the interest in tearing him down seemed artificial. I was glad that the lens widened to include characters that in all reality had 5 seasons and earned a little thought and focus by this point. Mr. Peanut Butter's through the lens of his goofy relationship with internet influencer and their attempt at restauranting, and Todd and his family maybe a bit too much and completely out of nowhere, and Princess Caroline for sure didn't know where her final arc came from, but she sailed along splendidly. Diane. Yeah, BoJack's closing conversation with her on the roof of the reception they were at reminded me a little of an anime Ralph had introduced me to, Fruits Basket, where the characters would chat on the rooftop of their home. BoJack's rooftop conversation with Diane was the relationship the whole show had been avoiding. BoJack as substanceless Zaz, and Diane's patent refusal to be defined as anything but negative space. We meet her as a ghostwriter, a ghost, as a publicist, as a blogger, as a writer of young adult mysteries. She was in BoJack's life a lot along the edges, but barely front and center in her own. Also, when I was talking about the Eat a Peach episode of 6 Feet Under, I noticed a parallel conversation between James Cromwell as George and Lauren Ambrose as Claire, and a conversation in the series finale of BoJack Horseman between Will Arnett as BoJack and Aaron Paul as Todd. George and Claire were discussing art, what meaning art has, what it's supposed to be. In Eat a Peach, the 2005 6 Feet Under production, George tells Claire he likes the sculpture she crafted with torn photos overlaid on a mannequin, giving an eerie third dimension to a flat depiction of a man's face. George called it provocative and disturbing and beautiful, and asked if that wasn't what art was supposed to be about. Claire says right now, with all the stuff going on in the world, art seems to be beside the point, but she says this while they're watching a show about war, gunfire and explosions going on, indeed nearer to the beginning of America's longest war, the War on Terror. As for the parallels I mentioned with BoJack Horseman, the finale aired in January of 2020. BoJack and Todd are on the beach watching fireworks. Todd is talking about his strained relationship with his mom, which, yeah, BoJack knows something about that. And he's talking about playing the hokey pokey at the daycare he runs at work, and Todd's been thinking about the lyrics. People don't get that song, he said. They focus on the hokey pokey, which BoJack quips, well, yeah, that's what it's all about, right? Todd rejects this, saying, "You do the hokey pokey, but you turn yourself around." And that's what it's all about.
Wow.
Bojack dismisses any depth you can read into a song that rhymes about with about, when Todd suggests maybe the point of art isn't what people put into it, but what people get out of it. And maybe that's the point. Or maybe art doesn't have a point, and that's why it's called art. Bojack wonders aloud at this point if Todd's being really smart or really stupid, to which Todd replies, "Oh, I never know." Bojack says, "I think you had it for a moment and you lost it," and Todd delivers the title line for the episode and maybe the theme for the series. Maybe theme for both series. Oh well. It was nice while it lasted. Bojack, Will, Aaron, Alan, surely was. Thank you all so much. I also had a chance to watch Marvel's Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, which I guess could potentially underlie a future storyline of some consequence, but to me it seemed mostly irrelevant. Also toward the inconsequential end of the spectrum, where a Michael Sheen private eye mystery from 1940, where his biggest case in the movie seemed to be that elusive plot. Slightly more interesting, if improbably convoluted, was a slapstick comedy piece from 1930 called Soup to Nuts that split its time between a fire station, a costume shop, and a restaurant. The romantic leads bicker endlessly, but the costume shop owner is going broke from his life's passion, building unnecessarily elaborate solutions to problems no one knew they were having, like a contraption by which breakfast makes itself, or a security installation that at one point involves a giant spring-loaded boot to yeet a burglar over the transom. Written by Rube Goldberg himself, possibly why the plot was also more than a little over the top. This goof also featured a stooge or two, and yeah, you saw the physical comedy coming from a mile off, but it was still pretty funny. I'd recorded that a while ago. I was happy to finally have a chance to watch it. And in the too fresh to even catalog category, this past week saw the 2-episode third season premiere of Only Murders in the Building, centered on a disastrous Broadway opener for Oliver Putnam's original murder mystery, Death Rattle, a real potboiler where the only suspect in multiple locked lighthouse murders would appear to be an infant, which is so weird since by opening night the entire cast appeared to have real-life motives to take out the movie star lead. In fact, given the buzz from the lead collapsing down center stage in the opening scene, maybe even the producers, Charles and Mabel start recording a fresh installment of the titular podcast, Only Murders in the Building. Just as Oliver hits on a new direction for the show, Death Rattle Dazzle, the musical. Well, he was just saying Charles should step up his sequin game. Wardrobe! Well, we've had a death and an encore, this time in the building, so we're cleared on format. We've had Meryl Streep and Paul Rudd, from a mysterious handkerchief clutched in the dead man's hand to a long-lost connection between the dead man and Charles, to an obsessed stalker desperate for justice. For sure, don't count anything out. Season 3 looks to be running Tuesday nights on Hulu, and from what I saw, they're off to a great start.
What I've been watching.
Ralph took me to see Elemental, which is better than I was expecting it to be. The story is centered in the fire quarter of Elemental City. A fire has trouble compared to the other quarters, water, air, and earth. I enjoyed immigrant fire-type shopkeeper Bernie's drive to succeed, to build a new life for his family, Cinder and Ember, whom he always said would one day grow up to run the shop. Ember is hot-headed and unfocused, with, as becomes clear, poor instincts for customer service. Also, the shop is run down, like the neighborhood. Nothing is up to code, and the very day the leaks get bad enough they nearly wreck the shop, Wade, a junior city inspector and water guy, shows up and calls them on it. Ember and Wade do not hit it off. She's enraged his inspection report could shut them down. She chases after him to stop submitting it, and on her way spies a few systemic issues that could be contributing to the problems that they're having. So she works with Wade to address the issues and save her family's shop, but realizes in the moment that the shop is really her dad's dream, not her own. The emotions of the piece shift from a simple love story to coming-of-age realization. Ember's artistic abilities are noted by Wade's family, and she's encouraged to follow her path. Her parents are unconvinced a fire-type and a water-type could find love, but, well, some things it's better to see firsthand. I will recommend it, though. It's hard to imagine a couple more crossed by their stars than Ember and Wade, but it's kind of fun as how this movie explores their relationship over a lot of different interactions and dating situations, given that Wade and Ember's relationship is really only one part of the story being told in a world they're in is far from intuitive. I'd call Elemental a solid performance with unexpected emotional depths. Great work. I also recently took in the Barbie movie and am truly happy. The cultural phenomenon Barbie represents from her earliest appearance on the scene to the meanings ascribed and attributed to her and expanded coterie over the years is hard to contain in a movie, even a movie-length advertisement, but it was cool that they went for it. I love Margot Robbie, I love Kate McKinnon, I love America Ferrera, and I guess you can't really have a toy-based movie anymore without involving Will Ferrell somehow, so there he was. I've gone into this movie hoping to watch Harley Quinn running around pretending to be Barbie, but damn if Margot Robbie doesn't have serious acting skills. I never caught a glimpse of Harley in that whole thing. The storyline made no sense. I never needed to. Barbie is a toy. Her relationship with Ken is irrelevant. The existential crises of dolls is as ineffable as the power of corporate entities. But their meanings for women and girls are quite relevant. The differences between Barbie's world and the real world are easy to see, and it's very cool to have director Greta Gerwig stand in front of us with a giant mirror and point out some stuff. Maybe a few new thoughts get incorporated into developmental processes of girls and boys, and the real world potentially changes as well, possibly even for the better, how's to know. Oh, and I've also been enjoying Grace and Frankie, which I guess it feels now like obviously the show was written specifically for me to enjoy. The casting is odd, but I suppose Sam Waterston and Martin Sheen would have been believably companionable through the decades of marriage both their characters are meant to have been living this lie, particularly with Lily Tomlin. I mean, she'd have been pretty cool with it personally. Of the four, Lily and Jane Fonda are Frankie and Grace, respectively, two wives thrown for a loop, and their husbands, Sam and Martin and Saul and Robert, respectively, partners at their law firm, reveal that they've been a mostly committed couple now for about 20 years. Denial, anger, recriminations. I'm not sure that's an actual step in the grieving process, but it for sure happens because the wives are understandably ticked off. The first season focused on the reality of reshuffling their spousal relationships as husbands and ex-wives and as women who didn't really have that much to do with each other before the big reveal, who now find themselves with some extraordinary commonalities, including shell-shocked adult children and the occasionally truly inappropriate absence of boundaries. The writing is sometimes cartoonish, but the obvious comfort and friendship between the castmates, for sure Jed Bartlett worked with Mrs. Hamantashen for years in the West Wing, shines through and truly makes this a fun binge. I'm most of the way through season 2 now, and I'm enjoying it immensely. And I can't believe I almost forgot to celebrate the return of Crime Scene Kitchen and Project Runway. This 20th season of Project Runway on Bravo is an all-stars battle royale with incredible designers plucked from throughout the Project Runway multiverse, including first-season designers. There's only been half a dozen episodes or so, but we've watched some heartbreaking outcomes as well as some truly breathtaking designs. I love watching competitors at the top of their game. These designers truly shine. Is there more drama than absolutely necessary? Well, let me check. Is it a reality television production? The answer is generally the same to both. None of these designers are new to the situation, however, so they've largely behaved themselves through the various challenges. Which transitions us nicely into the discussion of Crime Scene Kitchen. Oh, the drama. Did you take too long making your crepes and they couldn't cool properly to layer in your icing? Did you use raisins in your dough? Did your anti-gravity cake feature look inappropriate? Fie for shame. The remaining mix of professional, self-taught baking teams competing for the top prize of $100,000 seek to avoid elimination by best reading the clues left in the titular Crime Scene Kitchen and then, in their own spaces, recreating what they suspect was created there. It's so much fun because the teammates often second-guess themselves or each other, leading to miscues and sometimes baking mistakes like misreading the clues, choosing the wrong ingredients, and checking on the progress of their cake too often, frosting the cake when it's still too warm, or 100 other ways teams can get in their own way. Along with what are otherwise clearly talented baking teams, the show features delightful host and pot stirrer Joel McHale, judges Yolanda Gamp and Curtis Stone, and a rotation of guest judges. Ralph and I absolutely love watching the teams sifting the clues to make their deductions and creating their confections, and watching to see how close they all end up to the reveal by the Confectionator 3000 to see who's moving on and who's heading home. It's just such a wonderful production. We love it.
Whatever you're watching, wherever you be, stream of the stream with me.
Closing this out, I had a chance to watch the series premiere of Nathan Pyle's Strange Planet on Apple TV this past week. First off, fun to encounter Darcy Carden again. Absolute joy. And I know as the cast continues, it's going to expand to include even more wacky funsters. But here's what I'm reacting to. Coworker gets promotion, strains relationship with former coworkers, now subordinates. Couple breaks up and realize they miss one another. Bandmate leaves, and others founder in the wake of the new dynamic. All of these are immediately recognizable and relatable situations, which is necessary because the beings in this show are largely undifferentiated. This show is based on Nathan Pyle's Strange Planet comic strip series. It's quite a lot of fun, but situations are immediately recognizable and relatable precisely because they have worked throughout the history of comedy. The style of literal language translation is the primary twist here, and sadly, rest slab for bed, comfort square for pillow, and mild poison for alcohol loses its comic punch when you stretch 4 squares of a comic strip across half an hour. Not to throw anyone under the group roll machine, I love Strange Planet, the comic strip. I want this to succeed. Dan Harmon was a good guy to go to in making the transition to streaming television. I will watch that opening sequence many times before I entirely perceive what's going on with that thing. His instinct for speed and complexity shines through there and then drops off precipitously. And also, thankfully, if the whole show ran at that speed, it would be confusing to the point of unwatchable. Recommendations. Since most of the comedy arises from recasting familiar tropes and stilted, literal, and piquant if unfamiliar language, for example, Pyle refers to toast as twice heat-blasted dough slabs, establish the earliest scenes with low complexity, holding more complex event descriptions and interactions in reserve so it feels like you're building to something, like your audience is up to speed on this, so let's add this new element. This would be easy to stage in a collective commerce arena such as a strip mall, as small collections of beings encounter increasingly familiar comic situations that also increased in comic potential through past interactions with other beings. They kind of did this with the plane and band storylines, resolving with the couple's storyline, but by the time it was over, I was so aware of having been watching this play out over half an hour, leading me to my next observation. Strange Planet has many beings, cut to small, odd, one-off interactions that may or may not be referenced later in the production. They did this kind of comedy with the public address announcer on The Unusuals, short, quick jolts of hilariously comic non-sequiturs. I feel this show would benefit from some of that. But what do I know? It's a fun show. I wish him well. And congratulations on the visual experience. Throws tiny trash. Yay! And with that, I really must finally get this into the feed. Thank you all for checking in on my video cataloging project. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at VideoFuzzy.blogspot.com. For past episodes, subscribe and follow VideoFuzzy wherever you get podcasts. If you get a chance, check out my VideoFuzzy the soundtrack entries as well. Feedback is always appreciated. You can contact me through my blog or podcast sites via email to tjaman1970@yahoo.com or through my VideoFuzzy pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Aman. Happy viewing! It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.